This is Christina Barr. You're watching Black Tea News. Hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today we're going to be talking about just dystopian nightmare Democrat stuff that's like happening right now for our eyes. New York is amending, is doing something called the Social Media Hate Speech Accountability Act, which they're amending different business law that they have to include definitions of hate speech and making sure that social media companies have a transparency about how they're going to get rid of it. But of course, government making regulations about speech and making definitions on what they count as hate speech, which most people, you could say like a woman is a woman and a man is a man, and that can be considered hate speech if you misgender someone. So obviously this is a bad place. Do you guys think that they'd put in someone worse than Cuomo after he was forced to step down? Which he may try to strike back, actually, but this Hochul lady is just awful. There's that. There was a terrible hit and run in California, and by a teen who's going to juvie, and I guess is going to spend a couple months there. And the DA was like, "That's a fair sentence." But this person has a bunch of priors, and apparently their record's going to be wiped clean when they get out. And it's like, oh, this person, it looked like they tried to attempt murder with a vehicle. And when you don't hold these sort of people accountable, and I understand it's a young person with priors, pretty bad priors, which we'll get into, when there is no sort of record, this is the kind of person who may one day try to, purchase a gun for perhaps something heinous, and these are probably the people who aren't going to get flagged. So it just makes me question if we want to truly keep society safe when we keep making these ridiculous sort of judgments. And of course, you want to talk about high gas prices, and apparently I don't think Granholm, who's the energy secretary, formerly the governor of my state of Michigan, which we called that time she presided over the last decade, doesn't think that the prices are going down. Now, I think that's curious that they don't expect them to go down once they kind of start solving problems. If they intend to solve any sort of problems, maybe they don't ever intend for that to happen, but they're going to keep pushing their green policies because at the end of the day, that's really what they want. And a paranoid person might suspect that some of this is really on purpose, because how can you be doing such a terrible job this bad? I mean, I saw people the other day commenting who've lived through the 70s and stuff and Jimmy Carter, and they're just like, Biden is worse. What's going on in the country. So we're going to be getting into all that today. But before we jump into it, I want to encourage you guys to go back to news.com, check out different content that I have on my website, different articles, etc., different merchandise that we have on the site as well that you guys might like to pick up and get, like the You Are Not That Special shirts. I got these cool My Money, My Business shirt. And of course, I got the GOAT hoodies and got those t-shirts as well. And I have them in different colors, and Denounce White Supremacy, Defeat Joe Biden shirt, all kinds of cool stuff. And I'm going to go ahead and mention that I am also a writer, for those of you who do not know. I have one book out that is not fantasy, fiction. The rest are fiction. I have 15 published books, if you don't know. I have Slay Your Fear, which I wrote during the pandemic because people had lost their minds, and I really wish people had listened to my advice, but it's not solely about the pandemic. So you can go ahead and add that to your library to learn how to overcome fear and be rational. There are things to be concerned about in a rational sort of way, but living your life in fear, that's not how we are meant to live. So you guys check out that book. I also have a historical fiction fantasy series out and all kinds of other different stuff. If you go to blacktnews.com, there's a merchandise page, and there's a banner at the top that will lead you to my book website if you're interested in checking out any of those things. I was on a live yesterday, I mentioned it, and some people didn't know, so I just wanted to remind you guys that I got other things going on. There was someone who tweeted yesterday, was complaining about um, how, you know, how the right says the left can't meme, and like, well, the right can't produce content. And a friend of mine who makes really good comic books and stuff, he had retweeted them and was like, that's not true. People on the right do make good content. They just sort of need more financial backing. And so he works great. He does great stuff himself. Really, really like his art. But yeah, there's plenty of talented people on the right who do things. So if you want to kind of see new people rise up in the culture war, you can go ahead and offer them your support, and stop funding people who like genuinely hate you, like Disney genuinely hates you and your values and your principles. So also want to thank Brighter Michigan Pack. I'm in their studio today. If I say something today that triggers you, then I don't care. It doesn't work like that. I'm just using the space, and they appreciate conservative voices and uplifting them, and I appreciate them for always being open to do that. So, you guys know I like to start with something funny before I jump into the news, but it is pretty much the news. But someone had posted this thing the other day. Uh, it's a post from the Washington Post. A headline: Energy 202. Conservatives predict gas prices will spike under Biden. Experts say those fears are overblown. So that was November 2020. And that was wrong. Really, really obviously wrong. So let's jump into the gas prices, because I took my sister to work like 8 in the morning and went back home, started working on some stuff. I was writing a book. I would really like to finish another one before my birthday on Friday. I'll be hitting the big 33. Just FYI. So I was writing and stuff, and then I got some stuff in order, started doing my show prep and whatever. So when I left out, was on the way, I looked, and I saw gas at $5.29. And when I had got some gas this morning, it was $5.09. Now, granted, it was a different gas station, but it was just around the corner. They're all pretty much the same, so I didn't really look at other prices so much. But when I saw the Speedway on the corner, it's the one I turned into to get like on like 75 and stuff. With I saw that 5.29. I was just like, how did this happen? How is it jumping this high this fast? And I've seen like overnight you go to sleep and maybe it's 10 cents or something, but holy cow. Holy cow. That's a big jump. And just jumping in increments of 10 is strange. So I did put that on Facebook, and people had some funny comments, which I'm going to read a few. I said, why did gas jump 20 cents since 8 a.m.? Someone said, because the thing, or could it be the work of that bad boy corn pop? And same guy said, because Orange Man bad, Orange Man make mean tweet, Orange Man make gas go up. And someone else said, mean Putin trying to make Supreme Leader look bad, poor Joe. Someone else said, because of who was voted in Congress, we're now becoming slaves to politicians. Someone said corn pop did it. Someone had a gif of Joe Biden looking confused. Someone said that crazy old man. Someone said because Biden, that's why. Someone said Democrats are expecting and ensuring that it hits at least $10 a gallon. Some places it's probably going to get like that. Someone said Putin. It is all Putin. Putin creating all those murders in Chicago. Putin physically manipulating oil production in the U.S. Putin stealing all the baby formula. Always rootin' tootin' Putin. What you gonna do? And someone else said, because there's no more mean tweets. So those were the answers that I got about why gas jumped 20 cents since 8 a.m. this morning. Yeah, it's pretty interesting and really hard for a lot of people to want to work now, to even travel to work. And I've heard some stories about grown people wondering how they're going to be able to keep going to their pretty good jobs, but it's not like down the street, and it's expensive to get to A to B, and it's getting to the point where it's too expensive to do work. Like, and you think about people who do like Uber and DoorDash and other stuff like that. It's not feasible to do those sort of things right now. And there's so much industry right now that is surrounded that's I think relying on that sort of delivery system. Because if you go, like I drove to Arby's at like 9 o'clock. I just wanted a cookie. They have a pretty good double chocolate chip cookie, and I just wanted a cookie. And they're like, we're only accepting DoorDash right now because they get these orders in, and they have people do the orders, but they don't have enough staff to keep it staffed that late, and so they might get consistent delivery orders. So they make sure I guess they're at least staffed for that, and they may not always be staffed for that. So if people can't even do that because that's too high, after people have pretty much adjusted to a lot of people just getting delivery rather than sitting in restaurants. There's a lot of places that were dine in that are still not dine in. And it's not because of COVID, it's because things have just been kind of so kerfuffled that now they've just adjusted to pretty much doing just delivery and just preparing stuff for takeout instead, because they don't have the staff to manage that. And some of that is um well, basically paying people to stay home and conditioning people to not work. And people still trying to recover from that. We have a huge labor shortage, and things are only going look like they're only getting worse. And I know that could be all by design. Here's a clip of Jennifer Granholm, who's our energy secretary, and again, she was the governor of Michigan, presided over the last decade. Which, when I tell people who aren't familiar with Granholm that she went the time she was in Michigan, we call it the lost decade. Now she's our energy secretary. Their eyes just sort of like gloss over, because they're like, how did she fail upwards? Because that's what Democrats believe in doing. They believe in failing upwards. They believe in failing upwards. So here's Granholm.
Ultimately, this price hike that we are seeing globally will likely remain high. And so we want to make sure that at the same time as we are calling upon an increase in supply, that we are also accelerating our future to clean energy solutions.
So here's a question for you guys. Why is it going to remain high? Is it just because greedy oil companies and they know how much they can charge you? Is that why? Because I recall, now gas wasn't this high under Obama, but it did get pretty high. But not this high, bro. Part of me is, I guess it was coming and the writing was on the wall, but part of me is still shocked that we're here in Michigan and it's over $5. We're over the national average right now. But I guess the national average will hit $5 eventually, but we're over the national average, and I'm a little still surprised that we breached $5. And I guess if we're already at 5.29 in some spots, around me, I can see us maybe even getting to $6, honestly, and that's really going to be destroying some people. For her to say it's going to remain high, I find that questionable, because gas prices got pretty high with Obama, but things got better and they went down. Not only did they go down, because we had like $4 gas under Obama, I believe, but it got down to like under $2. It got down under $2. So if we face like the right economic sort of outcomes where it makes sense for those prices to be that low, because there's lots of supply, and the market can just dictate that it can be under $2, it would make sense that it gets there again. Them predicting that it's just going to remain high, what is that based off of? Just because maybe they're just preparing us because they don't plan or know how to solve the problem. Maybe that's it. And she already said we're going to have to just work at the same time to transition into a greener economy. Well, I know that's their plan. I mean, Jennifer Granholm had a huge conflict of interest because she was invested in a company for like green, powered cars and stuff. And Biden actually like spoke at the plant or something, like having some kind of like digital speaking engagement. And so they said that she like had to like try to cash out or something like that. But a lot of these people have ties into this stuff, which we talked about. And I was at the gas station talking to one guy and just brought up like gas, and he's like, "It's they wanted to be high." He's like, "It's a plan. They want to get us some them cars." And so I'm like, "Did you know that Biden's son, helped the Chinese secure a mine for products that are like made in the batteries for these cars?" And he didn't know that. So if you guys aren't having conversations at gas stations, you're really missing an opportunity to try to convert someone, man. You're really missing a really good opportunity to have a good political conversation. You may run into someone who's like a crazy person who's like, "Oh, it's all Putin's fault," and it's definitely not Biden's fault. But like, I think if you just have a couple good points, you can hit him on like, bro. But I don't you find this curious that they're saying it's going to remain high? Why would it remain high? Because it's not feasible where it is with the economy. It's people aren't going to be able to continue living like this. So it's going to have to get lower unless it can't get lower. But we've been in this position before where gas prices were high, not this high. This is a historic high. But even at this point, if gas got down to $3, we probably feel like, "Ooh, that's cheap." But gas was once upon a time like at 4 something. I think in the Obama administration, it got pretty high. But at a point when Trump was president, it got down to under $2. And when Obama was president, he also talked about how our GDP at the rate at where what was at was just kind of like the new reality that we would never see. I think it was like not even hitting like 2% or something. He's like, "That's just what it is now. That's like our new reality." And then Trump got in and it got higher, and they're like, "Oh, but this was Obama the whole time. This was the trend." I'm like, "It was the trend, but you guys thought this was never going to happen again?" Come on, guys. Come on. Because Trump kept waving that magic wand that Obama said that he was going to have to wave. So I I think these people are I'm so conflicted. I'm stuck between they're clueless and they don't know how to solve the problem, and they know how to solve the problem, but they're too stuck on their ideology and they want you to suffer. They're willing for you to be collateral damage so they can ultimately move toward the utopia that they want. But it's obviously a dystopian nightmare. But it's worth you hurting right now to kind of go through this birthing pain for you to be able to get to where they want to take you. And they think it'll be worth it in the end to have all this green powered stuff everywhere, even though you still need like a dirty sort of source to make all those cars and power those cars anyway. It's um but it's not going to be how they want it to be, but they feel that it's going to be worth it in the end. So people don't have a problem going green eventually. We just don't want to be forced into it. When the market dictates that that is a superior option, we'll get there. But there's other options that they don't want you to have. Have you guys heard about stories about people making, I think it was like a hydrogen or powered cars or something, and like paying people off to not to give up the blueprints and to not make that stuff anymore? Like, people don't want different solutions for folks. Nuclear people are really, really against, and I don't expect you to have like a nuclear powered car, but I'm just talking about like a clean energy solution people don't want you to be able to have. They're really, really stuck on um what they have right now. But a lot of people are invested in this in like Granholm and other folks and what they're trying to push. And I saw Biden in the White House. They're really invested in trying to push solar stuff right now. And then someone went back and found like a headline of Jimmy Carter doing basically the same thing, like looking towards solar, like for the future. And he was just making a parallel between Biden and Jimmy Carter, even in this stage of the game of where they're kind of trying to turn their focus as they have all these economic problems, and including problems with gas being high. And people in the comments started talking about, older people in the comments were like, Biden is worse than Jimmy Carter. Things are worse than they are right. They're worse right now than they were back then. And I have to ask my parents if they feel the same way. But a couple months ago, I did ask I guess this after the Afghanistan broke out, and the terrible pullout. I asked my dad, I'm like, have you ever seen a disastrous, 8 months or so for a president starting off? He said, never, never. And I think that's pretty legit. How awful must it be to be Joe Biden, to always want to be president, to have fought for it for so long, and then to get the job and you're the worst? Like his poll numbers are the worst. Like modern history at this like point in time. And there's all these reports coming out that he's really frustrated that people don't like him more, and that he's like polling under Trump. And we talked on, I think it was Friday, about a report came out about all these people doing like the social media messaging. And I think that was maybe a CNN article, and there was another one I think by NBC, ABC, or something like that, talking about people just need to let Joe Biden be Joe Biden. And Joe Biden is the problem though. Joe Biden is the problem though. And he was just never destined for this road. They had to break the whole entire world to have our country come to a screeching halt, to ruin people's livelihoods, their businesses, ruin kids' mental health, stunt their growth and their learning as far as school, and all kinds of other stuff with the pandemic. And to get him in the White House the way that they did, they had to censor the oldest paper in the country. They had to defame the United States as the worst racist place apparently on the planet, and that the conduit of all that hate had just all accumulated inside of Donald Trump. And if Joe Biden, for some reason, he was the guy who was going to save the soul of the nation, and they created this humongous narrative all to get this man in the White House who was like kissing and hugging on segregationists, and according to his according to his VP, tried to keep her from integrating in schools. This person in the White House to save all of our ills. Before I move on, last thing I just want to note is that when on the way I was listening to a debate on Fox News, and they were doing a news story about some black voters that were complaining about Joe Biden, and particularly there's one person from Georgia who was like, um, he's tried, he's done some things, but he's not really keeping his promises, and we're still all really hurting. And they said at least Trump really tried to keep his word. And so Biden is a notorious liar, like far worse than Trump, and I think most politicians probably out there. But Biden has kept his word on a lot of things that he claimed he was going to do. Unfortunately, a lot of people weren't paying attention to those sorts of things. They thought that I don't know, that he's really going to build back better, but kind of like Obama's hope and change, you didn't realize what sort of changes you're going to get. You don't, and just because you say hope and you think of something sort of aspirational and good, doesn't mean that their intentions are the same as yours. So when Biden's talking about building back better, maybe that they're thinking in the terms of their dystopian, inclusive, equity sort of Frankenstein monster of racism that they promote. I mean, because those are the things that are really high priority to them. So there's pride flags everywhere. There's all the military, all these different branches of military putting out all this pride stuff. There was a space force tweet out something like there was like an astronaut on the moon, but instead of having the American flag, they had the pride flag. So they have different priorities. Like you may want to put food on your table, and he wants your kids to transition. Like so and this stuff isn't sort of new if you kind of paid attention and read what was like in on their pages for when he was running for president. And he also promised to to come after the fossil fuel industry. Yeah, he's doing that. Like a lot of the reasons why gas prices are so high is because it's an involuntary sort of industry with a lot of risk right now because of who's the president. I don't think he's like twirling a mustache and be like, I'm gonna raise the gas 20 cents. I don't think Biden is doing that. I don't think he's literally writing the different gas prices across the country. But people like, president doesn't control the gas prices, but he is contributing to the culture that is creating the high gas prices. And if someone else was at the helm, like Donald Trump, no, I absolutely do not believe that gas would be $5.29 in Michigan. Absolutely not. So he is doing what he intended to do. I'm just sorry you didn't see through him. I'm really sorry you didn't see through him, not because I have such sympathy for you who is now suffering, um, but because we are all suffering together now, and I wish you had known better at the time. And it's not because you were there were a lot of people who made an effort to sort of hide who he was, but there was enough information for you to know better. So I all I can ask at this point is that we make better decisions for ourselves in the future. Let's move on to this hit and run in California. I'm going to show you this video. I just want to give a little warning. It is shocking what happened. So just a little FYI before it plays. Okay, there's a woman with a stroller just ran over a woman. And here's that car again. Boom. Crashed somebody. On purpose, it looks like. So, this is a thread I'm reading from Twitter from this national correspondent from Fox News, Bill Mulligan. Thread: a 16-year-old hit and run driver in a stolen car who ran over a mom and child in Venice was sentenced on Friday to 5 to 7 months in juvie camp. LADA George Gascon office tells me this was an appropriate resolution, but I've learned he has a prior criminal history. Per multiple law enforcement sources, the juvie was on probation and violating it at the time of his hit and run, and he had been previously convicted of felony poisoning after he spiked a teenage girl's drink at Palmdale High School in 2019. She was hospitalized. Now, that's a pretty serious thing there. Poisoning someone, spiking a girl's drink. So is this just a psycho sort of person who was going to risk killing her? Was he going to do something else to the girl? Despite Juvie's criminal history, sources in the LA DA's office tell me that in accordance with his policies, Gascon's admin didn't charge the Juvie with assault and deadly weapon or attempted murder for the hit and run, which led to a light Juvie camp sentence. Gascon's office told me and the LA County Sheriff's Department agreed with the lesser charges in the case. After the LA County Sheriff Alex Villanova pushed back and said that LASD had no involvement in the case or the lightweight sentencing, Gascon's office admitted the LASD wasn't involved and told me they will correct their statement. New just spoke with the mother who was run over by this juvie. She was unaware of the criminal history or that he was on probation when the hit and run took place. She is furious about the light sentence and the way this case was handled. This is her statement. Someone with a criminal record tried to kill me and my son, and George Gascon thinks that 5 months of camp is a sufficient punishment. Gascon's office took the time to falsely comment on my case, but has taken no time to ask how we are doing. That's because he doesn't care. Gascon and his staff are highlighting their incompetence and their complete disregard for victims. That is crazy. Can you imagine just walking down the street with your child in a stroller in a car, plows into you both on purpose, and that person getting 5 to 7 months at a juvie camp? Now, I was listening to Fox reported they believe that when he turned 18, that stuff would be wiped from his record. If that's the case, that's insane. Since he's someone who spiked a girl's drink and tried to like kill a couple people with a car. So if we're not serious about crime and criminals, how can we be serious about gun control? Like, if they want to do all these like background checks and red flags, like what's going to pop up on people's flags? What's going to pop up? And what does it matter if you're going to charge these people when something happens, but you're going to just give them really light sentences? You're going to let them plead down. You're going to do the bail and pay out the bail, the cash bail, because people don't like the bail or they want to get rid of it, etc. And just have them back on the streets to go terrorize other people. And then you don't want really those people to be armed to protect themselves. But what happens when you get police officers like in Uvalde, Texas of all places, and they're not doing anything to save your life? So how can anyone think that we are creating a better society? And I understand people don't want young people to be on a path of forever crime and locked up and not have a chance to rehabilitate. But some people are dangerous and don't need to be on the streets running over women and their kids. That is psychotic. Ramming down a woman and a stroller? That's someone, if there was an Arkham Asylum, you would probably put them there. That is insane. And it's insane that someone would just make 5 to 7 cents for something like that. 5 to 7 months for someone with a criminal history. That wasn't a lapse of sanity. Let me hit the gas and go. This is a really bad person. And I know I don't know, people want to deny human nature, that some people can just genuinely want to do harm and be bad. I'm not saying environments and other things didn't contribute to that, and I'm not saying that people can't be redeemed. But people also need to be punished for their actions, and if they are not taught that there's some kind of consequence, they will go and do it again. Now, hopefully, when this person gets out of juvie, there's not some kind of other criminal thing that happens, and we're looking back saying, why did all this stuff slide and now they've done something worse? Hopefully, that is not the case. But unfortunately, you're finding with a lot of people who are doing different crimes on the streets that if they had had harsher sort of sentences, and maybe they wouldn't be out to terrorize people like the Christmas parade massacre with the guy driving the car, hitting children and grannies at a Christmas parade. And then people vote for the same morons over and over and over and over again in California. It's basically a one-party state. And then they wonder why all the stuff's getting worse, why people can't have packages delivered to them, why people are too scared to deliver mail in some places in California. And then when things get too bad, they just want to leave. And then they don't change their politics, they don't have that revelation that the crap that made your beautiful California a hellhole when you go somewhere else. And then you want to go to Texas and other places and make that blue. It doesn't make any sense. They could have got rid of Gavin Newsom in a lot of these wackos. Now there are instances, like there was one school board that was like totally like recalled basically. So I'm not saying there's not hope. I'm not saying there's not bright spots, but people people need to get a clue. Crime is ridiculous right now. And I know people aren't looking forward to like sort of reliving the 90s where we had like really tough on crime stuff, but it looks like we need some kind of like Rudy Giuliani person installed like everywhere. It is kind of what it seems like we're getting to that sort of point. But you can't keep having these weirdos who don't care about law and order be over the law and not pushing order. You just can't. It's dangerous for the citizens of these cities, of these states. It's just really insane. Briefly, let me mention New York and the governor there and the craziness that they are instilling.
And in the state of New York, we're now requiring social media networks to monitor and report hateful conduct on their platforms. Thank you, Senator Anna Kaplan, and thank you, Assigned Member Patricia Fahey.
So they're introducing a social media hate speech accountability act. And the bill seeks to amend New York's general business law to include the definition of hate speech to require social media platforms to create a transcript procedure for its timely removal. If platforms fail to comply with its provisions, the bill also grants power to the Attorney General to seek up to $1 million in damages per violation. I don't know how that's gonna go down, especially since the Supreme Court like knocked down I think a Texas ruling about them trying to protect free speech on the internet. So I don't know how New York's going to be able to sue people for not getting rid of hate speech. Um, so that seems blatantly constitutional, but someone will have to take it to court. According to the bill's text, these procedures should ensure that a provider takes immediate note of the complaint and checks whether the content reported in the complaint is hate speech and subject to the removal of whether to access content must be blocked, removes or blocks access to the content that is hate speech within 24 hours of receiving a complaint, unless the provider has reached an agreement with law enforcement allowing more time, removes or blocks access to all hate speech content immediately. This generally begins with within 7 days of receiving the complaint, unless the decision regarding hatefulness of the content is dependent on the falsely of a factual allegation or is clearly dependent on other factual circumstances. In such cases, social media network can give the user an opportunity to respond to the complaint before the decision is rendered. It's pretty nutty. And hate speech, it's defined as a public expression, either verbally in writing or through images, which intentionally makes an insulting statement about a group of persons because of race, ethnicity, nationality, religion or beliefs, sexual orientation, gender identity, or physical, mental, or intellectual disability, and requires platforms to set up an easily recognizable, directly accessible, and permanently available procedure for submitting complaints about hate speech. I mean, where does this go? I mean, I'm pretty sure New York, they would consider like misgendering someone hate speech. If you mention gender dysphoria or something, they might consider that hate speech. I've gotten flagged for stuff that was clearly not hate speech on social media platforms. um and they've taken it down, and they definitely take sides. Like there's on granted TikTok is a, Chinese company and stuff, but they clearly favor particular content users who are like race grifters, and they will say the most racist stuff to like white people, for example. But I mean, you could have there's viral videos of people dancing saying they hate white people, and those kind of things were allowed to stay up. But clapping back at people, at particular people, they'll say you got this guy, violated for hate speech. I did one video and I took some time making it, man. And And someone called me Uncle Tom, something derogatory like that. And so I just made a Django reference, and I'm like, you're clearly Steven, like the Samuel L. Jackson character who was like protecting the Democrat white racist. So I like took the scene from Django when he's like coming down the stairs and saying his speech, like I am that one in 10,000 such and such. And then I had their when Steven's on the ground, I had their comment. And then when the house like explodes, instead of Jamie Foxx, I'm like in it, and then like glasses come down, like the deal with it sort of glasses. And that did not last long on TikTok. I tell you, it got taken down real quick. So then I put on YouTube, and then YouTube took it down. So it is on Rumble if anyone's curious about it. And when I tried to appeal it on YouTube, I tried to explain the situation, and I'm like, they said this hateful thing, so I am replying back to them. And if you want to take this down, you are acknowledging that you do not feel that I have a right to defend myself, etc. Blah blah blah. It was a paragraph. A few paragraphs. I'm sure no one read, and they're like, no, this is hate speech, and they took it down. They took it down. So anyway, I just don't feel like I feel like these social media platforms should have more of an Elon Musk approach, which, by the way, that deal may be in danger with Twitter because um I think Elon doesn't quite feel that it's worth what he's paying out for it. And he might have had an inkling about that before, but he's trying to know how many bots are on the platform versus how many humans. And apparently Twitter does not want to say that. It's probably because there's a crap ton of bots on the site, probably more bots than there are people actually interacting on Twitter. So if that is the case, then it should be probably significantly lower than the amount that he's offering. But it probably was that anyway. I mean, he gave the offer because it was too good to pass up, and so that's why they caved. So I don't know if I don't know if it's gonna go through or not, because I think he's claiming that they're breaching their agreement, but I think whoever like walks away has to like pay $1 billion to the other or something like that. So we'll see how that goes down. Maybe he'll make them tell them, and he can still find a way to make it profitable, maybe. But just an interesting thing. I'm just letting you know it's in the news. Um, but I think that's bad for New York and the government at all, trying to come for people saying that certain things are hate speech is just crazy. Like if you're preaching something in, like, I don't know, Leviticus or something, Deuteronomy, or I don't know, somewhere that doesn't quite go with let's say Pride Month, for example, like, is that considered hate speech? I know in Canada it is, and it's not too far fetched that the governor of New York would probably think so. So whether it's comments about race or sexuality or other stuff like that, people can get so easily offended. And I'm surprised I wasn't banned last night from a live. Just really quickly, if I could explain a story, a friend of mine was having a conversation about purity culture, and it was supposed to be like from a non-religious perspective and a religious perspective. And I guess some of it was actually cut off, like the description when she actually went live. So most people just assumed it was just religious. So I hopped on because I'm a young Christian unmarried woman, and I'm not ashamed to say that I'm still a virgin and save myself for marriage, because that's what I'm supposed to be doing anyway. And so anyway, I started having a conversation. I'm like, I didn't even really hear people talk about purity culture and other stuff like that so much until I got on like TikTok, and there were people who were like, it's toxic. I'm like, what the heck? And I'm just like, I'd be lying if I said like part of it isn't religious, but I'm not religious because I'm bored. I'm not religious because I need something to do. Like, I'm religious because I believe that, one, it's the truth, the truth, not my truth. It's the truth. That's what I believe. If you disagree, you disagree. But I'm like, it doesn't make sense for me to live in a promiscuous manner. Like, risking your body to different STDs, to making soul ties with dead weights, as I like to say, having being intimate with person after person of person who may not really care for you, and have all these hangups and hookups and kids out of wedlock. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense for the society. I don't think we're at a better place because we're living the dream of Kinsey, who was a pervert, who wanted to make America a more sexualized place and believe kids were sexual from the womb, I suppose. Like, I don't think we're a better nation because of that. So we were having a discussion about all that stuff. And one of our friends was in the comment who's trans, a trans person. And so Becca asks, like, do you believe that you mentioned homosexuals? Do you believe that homosexuals, this can include homosexuals? And we're like, anybody can abstain if they want to. And then they ask, well, do you think that homosexuals are more promiscuous? And I'm like, I don't really, I guess, carry that assumption with me, but that assumption has been put out, like, that sort of idea has been put out. But when I hear that, it's usually coming from homosexuals who kind of give off that vibe. And so the host of it is also named Christine, and so that's what we agreed on. So then a gay man asked to join the live, and so he believes that purity, culture isn't for the gay community, and they are promiscuous. And I'm like, I just wanted to be known that I said something, and he kind of came in and like affirmed it. And but then he didn't like the term purity culture. He's like, because you're insinuating that something is bad. And I'm like, well, as I said, I am a Christian. I do believe it is sinful for anyone to have sex outside of marriage. I'm like, so yes, I do personally think it's sinful. Like, if you disagree, you disagree. But I'm just telling you what it is, like, according to my faith and stuff. And so I'm like, so yeah, absolutely. I do think it's sinful. And he's like, there's nothing wrong with it. He's like, I love to sleep around. I never want to be married, and I like sleeping around with different people. I enjoy it. And then I'm like, okay, you like being a slut. And he got so mad. He's like, you said that in a derogatory way. And I'm like, I think you're doing a bad thing. Like, what do you want me to say? I'm like, why? I'm like, I think this is an accurate descriptor. What does it matter? I said, if you called me fat, what does it matter? Like, it's a accurate description. I can get upset because you said that, but it's like, it's just be offended at the truth. I'm morbidly obese. Like, that's not news to me. Like, whether you say it out loud or not doesn't mean anything. So I'm like, so I was just so baffled. This person who just kept talking about how they love to sleep around, how they're never gonna get married, how that's just what they love to do, and they were mad. Like, you're judging me. I'm like, I don't care if you think I'm judging you. Like, I'm like, I don't care if, like, yeah, you're judged. I don't like what you do. I don't think it's a good thing. But they were so mad. And then even when we, like, eventually had to, like, kick him out. But people kept commenting in the comments, which most people were on our side, but they're like, you said it's different because you meant it derogatory. And I'm like, so if we were like buddies, I was like, hey, slut, that's fine. But I can't just, like, ignore. I didn't even say it like in a harsh, hateful sort of way. It's just kind of is what it is. So it was just very fascinating. They took such offense after this person just was like, I like sleeping around. I'm like, okay, you're just a slut. And I'm like, and it was so weird to me too that he was so offended by the comment when a couple years ago in 2016 there was Amber Rose, was that her name? She's a singer or actress or something. She's black. She has like a shaved head, like kind of blonde. I don't know how she looks today, but she was like having slut walks, and people were having different slut walks, and there were women walking around topless and all this other kind of stuff, like proud to be embrace that sort of thing. So I'm just like sort of baffled that people would care that much. But anyway, I just said I was kind of dying to tell that story anyway, but it just it just really baffled me. I was so angry about that descriptor. And I'm like, but that's what people would call someone if they were just like really, really proud of being promiscuous. And if that's your thing, that's your zhuzh. That's your zhuzh. It was really odd. Someone else can explain it to me. I don't know where we got why I got so mad. Sorry, I was just looking at the comments for a minute. It's just really, really weird. Last thing I want to mention, this was pretty big news over the weekend. In Texas, there was this gay pride, drag the kids to pride thing. And I'm gonna take off my logo because I don't want my logo be right here. um Behind the stage where it all went down, because some people are going to try to say that drag is not inherently promiscuous, but this was like at a, if I'm not mistaken, a gay bar. But there was this backlight that said it's not going to lick itself, where the kids were in that room and the drag queens were dancing. And obviously this was not family friendly, but that is how they advertised it. That is how they advertised it. And so what is our world coming to, like, really? And people could say, well, kids, it's a sexual innuendo and kids wouldn't get that. It's like, so, like, if um there are some innuendo stuff, like, if, like, why would you want your kids even to, like, if you could pick up on it, like, why would you want your kids, like, really being watching or being a part of something like that? Like, I don't understand that. And we're talking about young kids, not teenagers or something like that. We're talking about young kids. I have a little bit of footage from it, and I'm sorry to do this to your eyes. I'm just gonna, like, speed play it a little bit.
Oh my! If you know and you think you can do it like we do it, I want you to come up here real quick. If you think you can do it, if you think you can walk the runway with the girls, who wants to be a diva for the day? Yeah, everybody come back here with me.
Like, you feel the age
We're gonna let you walk. You pick who you want to walk the runway with. You pick who you want to walk the runway with. Okay, go with her. You guys go with her. How about
which, by the way, some of these drag queens and stuff, like, one of them had a OnlyFans account. You know, if you were a parent, and how could you know, I guess, but if you knew that your kid was, like, hanging around someone who had an OnlyFans account, would you want that person around your children? And you could be like, well, that's what they do in their private time. Like, but why would a parent want their child actively? Why would you actively put your child around anyone who does that sort of activity? Why would you want them around that? And you could say the kids, some of the stuff is going over their heads, and they're doing kind of some runway stuff, and there's nothing sexual about that. But some of these people are deviants, like sexual deviants. And the only purpose of continuously having these people around children is just to normalize it, as far as, like, in society, and also normalize it for kids younger and younger and younger. Like that kid who was like a famous drag queen. I can't remember his name, but I played a video when he was on, like, Good Morning America. And it's just really freaking weird, where you have, like, grown men giving money to these people. And Shoe on Head, who's not on the left, but I first saw her content doing, like, a lot of, like, feminist rebuttals and stuff. And so she tweeted out a couple pictures from this event, and she's like, I'm really sick of being gaslit about people just trying to say that this isn't weird. And then some people push back, and they're like, the old people, because they'll say, well, what about beauty pageants, others kind of, like, stuff like that, which, one, I don't think that kind of stuff is that bad, but there's plenty of people who push back against, like, the weirdness of that, when you just cake on all that makeup with the kids and make them dress in, like, bathing suits and hula hooping, like that. She's like, people are normally demonized, that kind of stuff. She's like, but people on the left jump through hoops trying to defend kids being in gay bars with drag queens, tipping them, giving them cash. Like this stuff was weird.
one person can go with me? Yeah,
worse stuff than that. Definitely worse stuff than that. I did not have the heart to play it for you guys today. Why is CPS allowing this to go on? There was a journalist who confronted these folks and had like protesters outside and other stuff like that. And as parents were leaving, he was shaming them. He was shaming the drag queens. So great stuff there. And he was shaming the police for not stopping it immediately. But the police did eventually get the kids out because again, this was like at a bar. And why do you have all those like children there at so they end up getting the kids out. So actually in Texas there was a legislator who is introducing some legislation to try to pump the brakes on some of this stuff. I don't know what will be the final sort of legislation that they will come up with, but all this drag stuff's freaking weird. It's freaking weird with the kids at the libraries. It's weird with the drag shows at the gay bars and others, especially like the lick it comment like in the backdrop. Like it's so gross, the advertising it, especially to the children. It's so weird, and the only real reason why these people want to do it, I can think, is to not teach about self-esteem and other stuff. You can do a million things teaching kids about self-esteem and believing in themselves and etc. I mean, that's one reason why I wrote Super Kid, like an actual family-friendly children's book. Okay, so there's so many different things you can do to teach good kids lessons, but what they're trying to instill in kids is this is some sort of normal behavior and they want to normalize it, and it's just weird, and I hate it. I'm so sick of seeing drag queens everywhere. I'm so sick of seeing drag queens. They look like freaking monsters. I don't want to see them to this degree. I'm sick of it, and you can hate me for whatever saying that. I don't like, again, I don't care if you're offended. It's so freaking weird. It's so weird, and I don't understand. I don't understand whether it's for the kids or how much people are like gravitating towards this in pulp culture and how they're forcing it in so many like TV shows and other stuff. I don't understand. I don't understand in the least bit. But we are living in a really weird society, but hopefully there's enough people willing to push back. Someone said it's about grooming and every connotation, all participates are predatory pervs. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm not disagreeing with you. At that point, like for real though, how can anyone disagree that this is grooming? That this is grooming right here. How can anyone disagree with that? How can anyone disagree with this? I don't understand. The last thing I want to mention before I go, Tim Pool had tweeted this out. Who is this targeting? LO WTF? Because the New Jersey GOP had tweeted out the New Jersey GOP stands with the LGBTQ community in celebrating Pride Month 2022. And not a crazy sort of tweet, but I do think it's interesting. Tim Pool, who's not a conservative, who's definitely not a Republican, who's asking this question, who is this targeting? And I guess it's pretty obvious that they're trying to target the LGBT, but I think it's interesting because there's so many like people who I follow and who follows me on social media who are conservatives, maybe newly made conservatives who are of the LGBT community who do not like Pride, who don't like the Pride parades, who don't like the kink, the weird stuff, a lot of stuff that's being pushed and tried to normalize today. And they just don't like the community. They don't like being associated with the community because they think the community is toxic. And they're like, I don't want to be associated with it. They went through, some of these people who are older, lesbians and homosexuals and stuff. They went through the ringer with being proud of who they were and had to fight for different stuff. And they don't like how toxic people are in return nowadays. And they just don't want to be associated with the sort of madness. And they really don't like the sort of corporate ness of Pride Month. How gays are being used as political tools. So I I don't know, maybe I'll have to sit down and talk to some of these people and get some of their thoughts more detailed and write an article or something about it. But I just thought this was interesting because I know at the RNC they do have a a director for like LGBT issues and stuff now. Like they had a faith-based initiative person. They have, you know, my sister was in charge of women's engagement, African American engagement, and they have like Hispanic engagement, other stuff like that. So they got someone to handle like LGBT issues and stuff. And so, I when that happened, I'm like, I do question. I'm like, what, what exactly is their sort of approach to doing sort of doing different kind of outreach. Because I do feel like this is a bit out of touch with people who are actually conservative, and I don't know if they're full Republicans. I've seen a lot of these people defend the Republican Party, and really, 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 a lot of these folks like Trump. But do they identify with the Pride Month, like the Pride Month, and like the actual LGBTQ community? No. So I just thought that was interesting. I just wanted to mention it. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the show today. A lot of stuff always to discuss on Monday when a lot of stuff goes down over the weekend, but there'll be plenty of it tomorrow. Hopefully we're not discussing how gas jumped another 20 cents while we were talking here together. Please go to blacktnews.com, check out different content that I have on the website, different articles that I have, different merchandise I have, like the Make Crack Whack Again Trump 2024 t-shirt. I got the I voted for President Trump and all I got was historic peace, deals, border security, ISIS destroyed, etc. A bunch of stuff under there, including gas under $2, tax cut, and this lousy t-shirt. I got the I Am Not Your Victim shirt that I really, 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 really like. I made that after the Gina Carano situation where her employer basically slandered her, so they get rid of her basically because they didn't like her because she was a conservative. Be Better Not Bitter, all kinds of stuff you guys can check out. And I also do write books and other things like that. You can go to blacktnews.com, go hit the merchandise button. If you're interested in any of my books, there's a banner there with some of my books on them. And if you click that, it'll take you to my book website. And so you can go ahead and scroll through there. And if you like fiction, I have one nonfiction faith book, you can check that out. I'm also working on a political book as well. That'll be a fun one when I get that one out. But check out some of my fiction. I really like it, enjoy it, and there's some good life lessons in there. You can even teach kids how to love themselves, and you don't even need to drag them to a drag pride parade to do it. So, and if you enjoy what I do here at Black Tea News, please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com/support. I really appreciate everyone who has donated and everyone who's willing to do that. Really, really appreciate that. If you're interested in also sponsoring the show, we'll be putting out how you can do that as well. Last thing I want to mention, this Friday, it is my birthday, but my church is putting on a special event and Mom will be giving a Q&A. And so this is really special because my mom is very introverted. She doesn't really like to get up too much and speak, but she's going to be doing a Q&A just, and people have been submitting questions about how to raise kids. She has 7 kids, 1 boy, 6 girls. So people are interested in basically how you can have a happy home and kind of replicate what she has done. So if you would like that sort of wisdom and you live in the Michigan area, I'll be posting more information on that this week. So, and I will be the one doing the Q&A. So if you want to hang out, come say hello and hear some good advice from my mom and meet me. And I don't know, slip me a birthday gift if you want. You can do all those things. But that'll be Friday. So watch the social media because I will I'll post something about it and I'll mention it and have more details tomorrow. But it should be a good time. God bless you guys and see you tomorrow.